Welcome back to another explainer, folks. Today, we're diving straight into pharmacology, the incredibly fascinating, intricate science behind every single medicine we take. The journey a chemical molecule takes to heal you is literally a mechanical marvel. You know, we routinely pop a pill and just kind of expect our symptoms to vanish in 20 minutes, totally taking the underlying biochemistry for granted. But what is the actual journey of that drug, from the very moment it's conceptualized in a lab down to the precise second it reaches the target cells inside your body?
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the full life cycle of a medicine, we're going to follow a 5-step roadmap. First, the science of drugs. 2, where drugs come from. 3, the drug name game. 4, shapes, sizes, and forms. And 5, getting into the body.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the science of drugs. So before we look at how a pill physically gets in your bloodstream, we really need to understand what pharmacology actually is. For thousands of years, humans relied on these crude natural remedies, like herbs and roots, where we knew they did something, but we had absolutely no idea how they worked. It wasn't until the 18th century that scientists like Magendie and Bernard actually started targeted animal experiments. Then, in 1847, Rudolf Buchheim founded the first real pharmacology institute. Fast forward to the late 19th century, and Oswald Schmiedeberg, who's often called the father of pharmacology, lays down the fundamental concepts that let us purify, chemically characterize, and design highly potent drugs today. We literally went from guessing with crushed leaves to targeted molecular science in just a couple of centuries. Pretty wild, right?
And today, that science is cleanly divided into 2 main branches. Now, I know this is a famously confusing split, but it's absolutely crucial. Think of it like a dance or a two-way street. First, you've got pharmacodynamics, and that is what the drug does to your body. It's the physiological effect, like adrenaline spiking your heart rate. On the flip side, you have pharmacokinetics, which is what your body does to the drug. Your body absorbs it, distributes it, breaks it down in the liver, and eventually gets rid of it. Understanding both sides of this dance is basically the entire backbone of modern medicine.
Moving right along to Section 2, where drugs come from.
So, where do these chemical molecules actually originate before they end up sitting in your medicine cabinet? Well, our medicines come from a phenomenally diverse set of sources. Historically, plants were our oldest source, giving us active ingredients like morphine and atropine. But we also get vital drugs from animals, like early forms of insulin and adrenaline. And we owe a massive debt to microbes. I mean, fungi and bacteria are the source of life-saving antibiotics like penicillin. We even use raw minerals like iron salts and lithium. But today, the vast majority of our medicines are purely synthetic chemicals cooked up in labs, giving us perfectly pure, uniform products. And right at the cutting edge, we've got biotechnology, using recombined DNA to actually grow complex, customized proteins like human growth hormone. It's the whole shebang.
Which brings us to Section 3, the drug name game.
Okay, so we've discovered a drug, and now we have to name it. If you've ever been standing at the pharmacy counter feeling completely confused, the sheer absurdity of this naming system is exactly why. Just imagine a chemical name like 1-isopropylamino, 3-1-naphthoxypropantuol. I mean, picture a doctor trying to write that out 50 times a day. No way. It's completely unworkable. Because of that, a scientific body assigns a simpler, non-proprietary name, which we usually just call the generic name, in this case, propranolol. Finally, the actual manufacturer selling the drug gives it a proprietary or brand name, and these are the ones designed to be short, catchy, and stick in your brain. This multi-tiered system is exactly why a single drug might have 10 different brand names depending on who makes it and where you live. When a doctor prescribes the generic name, the pharmacist can give you a generic product from literally any manufacturer. And these generics are often way cheaper, mostly because the manufacturer hasn't spent millions of dollars plastering a catchy brand name on billboards. But underneath all that marketing, the active generic chemical is exactly the same.
Next up, Section 4, shapes, sizes, and forms.
All right, so we have a newly named raw active chemical. But obviously you can't just hand a patient a microscopic speck of raw powder. It has to be formulated. And solid dosage forms go way beyond just mashing powder into a tablet. Take the Spanziol, for instance. This is an extended-release capsule, and the engineering inside is absolutely brilliant. It's packed with tiny granules of the drug, but those granules all have different coatings. Because the coatings dissolve at different rates inside your stomach, the capsule can slowly, steadily release medicine over 12 hours or more. It extends the drug's action, so you aren't stuck popping a pill every 2 hours.
Then, of course, we have liquid forms. Now, you might be familiar with basic suspensions, the insoluble drugs mixed into water that you have to shake up vigorously before taking. But an elixir is a bit different.
These are hydroalcoholic solutions. That means they use a little bit of alcohol to keep the drug dissolved, and they're usually heavily sweetened with syrup and flavored with fruit extracts. They are perfectly engineered to make otherwise terrible-tasting drugs incredibly easy to swallow.
And then, well, we have this suppository. Yes, it's a conical, bullet-shaped dosage form meant for insertion into the anal canal. I know, nobody really likes talking about these, and they can be a bit awkward, but their utility is seriously important. The firm base is designed to melt right at human body temperature to release the drug. If a patient is violently vomiting or completely unconscious and they simply cannot swallow a pill, this slightly embarrassing little dosage form can genuinely save their life.
And that leads us to our final stop, Section 5, Getting into the Body. This is perhaps the most critical step of the whole journey, how the drug actually enters your biological system. Broadly speaking, administration routes fall into two main camps. First, local routes. These are for when you want to treat a specific localized issue, like dabbing antibiotic ointment right onto a skin scratch. The drug stays there, does its job, and systemic absorption into the rest of the body is minimal. That means pretty much zero whole-body side effects. Systemic routes, on the other hand, are intended to get the drug completely absorbed into your bloodstream so it can be distributed absolutely everywhere.
And there's a staggering variety of doors we can use to get a medicine into the blood. Swallowing a pill, oral ingestion, is obviously the most common and convenient, but it definitely has limitations. You see, anything you swallow goes into your stomach, then your intestines, and then straight to your liver. And the liver acts like a tough security checkpoint in a process called first-pass metabolism. The liver can actually destroy a massive chunk of the drug before it ever even reaches your heart. That's exactly why we sometimes use sublingual tablets right under the tongue, or inhalation or cutaneous methods, all of which completely bypass the liver's aggressive first pass.
Actually, a really fantastic example of bypassing the digestive system is the transdermal patch, which uses the cutaneous route. The technology layered into a single patch is just amazing. You've got an occlusive backing film on top, a reservoir holding the drug right beneath that, and then a precisely engineered micropore membrane acting as a rate controller. This whole setup ensures the drug diffuses out of the adhesive layer and straight through your skin at a completely constant, predictable rate, sometimes over the course of 3 whole days. It provides incredibly smooth blood levels without any jagged spikes.
But what if you need the drug to work right this exact second? That's where parenteral routes come in, which is just a medical term for injections. By injecting a drug subcutaneously under the skin, intramuscularly into a large muscle, or intravenously straight into a vein, we completely bypass the intestines and liver. An intravenous injection is immediate. It has 100% bioavailability. It is an absolute lifesaver in emergencies. However, because it's so direct, it's also the riskiest, most invasive route. Once that drug is injected into the vein, you literally cannot take it back.
Now, I want to zoom out for a second from the mechanics of individual drugs and look at the macro level. Out of the thousands of chemical journeys we've developed over the years, the World Health Organization identifies a core list of what they call essential medicines. These are the absolute priority drugs. They're chosen because they are highly effective, incredibly safe, and very cost-effective. The overarching goal here is that any functional health system should always have these specific medicines available in adequate amounts to serve the majority of the population's needs.
In stark contrast to those essential medicines, we have what are known as orphan drugs. These are medicines desperately needed for very rare diseases. Because the disease affects so few people, a pharmaceutical company could never reasonably expect to recover their massive development and testing costs from sales alone. It's just a harsh economic reality of drug development. Because of this, governments in many countries step in and offer special tax benefits and incentives to encourage the creation of these vital orphan drugs, basically ensuring that patients with rare conditions aren't left behind. Well, we've covered a ton of ground today, from ancient plant extracts all the way to high-tech transdermal patches and the economics of orphan drugs. So I want to leave you with a provocative little thought exercise to really test what we've learned. Imagine you are a doctor. A 5-year-old child comes into your hospital with acute pneumonia, a dangerously high fever, and they're continuously vomiting. They urgently need an antibiotic. Based on everything we've explored today, which route of administration would you choose? Oral? Intramuscular? Intravenous? Think about the child's vomiting, the absolute urgency of that fever, and the different pathways into the bloodstream. It's decisions exactly like this that medical professionals make every single day, applying the fascinating science of pharmacology to save lives. Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.